New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
From the New Thought Media Network, this is the Conscious Reality Show with your host, CSara Stevens Nichols, where conversation plus intention reveals a new reality. Every week, Sarah and her guests will discuss what they know and what they don't. Experimenting in front of everyone with what else is possible. I'm Sunny Childs, and here is your host, CSara Stevens Nichols.
Thank you, Sunny. Oh, my lipstick is askew. We can't have that. Always a great way to start a show is focusing on your lipstick. So, hi, everybody. Hi. Yes, first, welcome to the Conscious Reality Show, where we create a new reality. And unfortunately, an apparent reality has been creeping onto us, not even creeping, leaping onto us since January 20th. And I'd like to address that briefly. The spiritual tool that I am using the most right now for the administration and what is happening is denial. Not using this as to deny that that this is the current reality in the sense of action and what we do in the real world, but denial at the spiritual level, pulling weeds from the consciousness to get rid of the fear, doubt, worry, terror that is there so that we can act, right? Instead of being sort of paralyzed. And there's a great piece, I don't know if we get to show it, even if we had wanted to, but that Ezra Klein has, that Sunny and I have both enjoyed, where he is basically saying that the shock and awe that's happening right now from the Trump administration is happening because he's weak. So, and because he really can't do what he needs to do, he is doing tons of crazy stuff right now in order to terrify us and make it so that we feel paralyzed and unable to act. So the two things I'd like to invite you to do, and Sunny, if you could put that denial screen slide up, is engage in spiritual denials. You can use this not just for the Trump administration, but for health and physical conditions and financial conditions. But I'm going to, these are sample denials. And I will just say, no, the Trump administration has no power. They have no power. They are weak. They cannot do what they think they can do. And I deny them. It is not so. I do not accept this condition. It is nothing. It has no power. It is a lie, and there is no truth in it. Yay. And then what you do, and you could take that down, Sunny, if you want, is then what you do is you look for who. You don't have to come up with what your action is. There are actions out there happening. You look for what someone is doing that you think makes sense to you, and you join them. So two things I'm doing. One is I'm giving money to Public Citizen, a flagship organization that I actually used to work for straight out of law school, full disclosure, founded by Ralph Nader many years ago. Public Citizen is suing to declare that Doge, the Elon Musk organization that is trying to get a hold of all the money in the federal government, is has no right to exist, isn't a proper entity, and cannot make any decisions. In other words, no, 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 Doge has no power. Elon Musk has no power. Stop this now. And they are fantastic at defending the separation of powers, and their litigation group is unparalleled. So while you might think of the big groups like ACLU or NARAL to give money to, and you probably should give it to them too, they're also good at suing over these related things. Public citizen probably needs your money more and will make more difference. The other thing I'm doing today in California, in Sacramento, well, apparently this is an action all over California, but I am going up to Senator Alex Padilla's office in the federal building here to demand that he really take on the administration and vote against the guy that is up for, that Trump has put up for budget chair, especially because that vote is this week. And he is completely unqualified to be in charge of the federal budget and would be a complete disaster. And so not just voting against him, though, but getting in the face of the Trump administration on every turn. Thank you. And then you can also do your affirmations and your spiritual practice, but don't pretend that this isn't happening. Deny it using spiritual tools, and then move your feet. As we say where I come from, treat and move your feet. Treat is our form of prayer. All right. So let's move into talking to one of my favorite people in the entire world, Andrew Lewis, who is an adopted son of my mother. So that makes him an adopted brother. And I grew up near him, around him, my whole life. Very close friend of my younger brothers prior to becoming my close friend. And he is also, in addition to being a family friend, he has a wonderful podcast called The Mountain, an adoration in a multitude of parts. And that is on Spotify, and it is also on Substack. So you can see it there on the screen, and I'm sure Sunny will probably put other things in the crawl about how to subscribe to that and follow that and listen to Andy doing these things. And Andrew Lewis is also a commentator on KQED and a community development consultant, has been a community development consultant on the Hopi Reservation, and is just generally brilliant and hilarious. So don't let him fool you if he doesn't seem to be either right now. Now I'm going to bring him on, Andrew Lewis. And I get to call him Andy sometimes, but you have to call him.
Yeah, you can call me whatever you want. And hello, everyone else, or anyone else who might be listening. Wow, I never thought of you as my big sister.
Yeah.
But now I do. No, and I'm just excited because I get that without having had to have endure the trauma of having
the
you as a big
torture that my brothers went through.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you
sure.
so much for referencing
And I say that. Yeah, I say that in a really loving way. So no, I'm serious. I do.
I know you do.
So,
I know you do, because you love our very challenging mother very much, and I know that I sometimes remind you of her, so that's always hilarious.
Absolutely, and most people, maybe anybody who's listening to this, did not have the great fortune of knowing Lee Nichols, and both my brother and I are still in great abeyance to her for different reasons. But perhaps you can see a little of her. You can imagine what she might have been like, or what she was like, if you just listen to Sarah a little bit. So.
Yes. Like, I don't think she would have ever had a webcast, but she would have definitely wanted to tell me all the things I was doing wrong on it. So, and it would have been hilarious, her commentary.
Yeah.
So, Andy, you've had this podcast for a few months now, and it is a very deep exploration of your sad story with your family and your interesting wandering in the wilderness that you have, where you have learned spiritual truths, and also your great musical taste. We get to listen, because the Spotify one, you get to listen to entire amazing songs that Andrew picks that go with it. How is that going for you? Are you going to keep being sad the whole time? Is that part of the plan? Or are you just sad every time you do it? Or what's up with that?
Yeah, wow. Well, so how's it going? Should I start with that and then we'll get to
Sure.
sadness? Yeah, sure. No, it's going well. Truthfully, if I could spend the majority of every day just thinking deeply about stuff and talking about it and then listening to sad music, I'd be really happy.
You
So,
will? Okay, great.
yeah. And so part of the challenge, I mean, is uh, there's distractive things coming at us every day, every second at this point, and so that's been a bit of a challenge. The And I have to record the third season yet, which I have to start at some point. But in order to do that and do it the way I want to, I have to transition the whole thing onto some other platform, hopefully community radio. So I need like a
Nice.
2 a.m. slot. But that way it would open it up to a lot more people. Right now you can only hear it on Spotify, and to actually hear it the way that I intended it to be
Yeah.
heard, you have to have a premium subscription, so you have
To listen
shovel
to
money.
those full songs. And
Yeah,
all of it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I need to get out from under the umbrella of that. But and that'll take a little bit of work. I have a little bit of time to do that, and it'll be a fun challenge. So that's kind of where it's at. But I am, and that will also give me a chance to clean up a little bit some of the lo-fi aspects of it as it currently exists. So
we don't need to abandon Spotify, those of us who are on it, right? It isn't the wrong
no.
billionaire owning it at this point, as far as
No, I mean, they're based in Stockholm. So, I guess if we're shoveling some money to Stockholm, that's,
could be worse.
not the worst.
Could
Yeah,
be worse.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and Substack is so far safe territory. I know that I noticed just in the past week, so many of my friends and family getting off all Meta, which is a lot, right? Because that's
Yeah.
Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Getting off that, and I've been off the Twitter for quite some time. I'm told that's the only dead name you can use, and that's Twitter. And but it's a little challenging to get off WhatsApp because that's been such a communication platform for me. It's not about followers, it's just about staying in touch with people.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't have to go too far into this, but we are in such a complicated media landscape now. I mean, even
Yeah.
now, like I use Facebook as a promotion thing, but every time I hit post, I feel weird and gross. And so,
Well, and there are fewer and fewer people engaging on it. Like that's part of it, is some people are looking at it still and they won't engage or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, so maybe that's a good impetus to get off it. But yeah, I mean, right, where how do we get stuff out there? Which is one of the things I really am excited about, if I can manage to get on community radio. If I'm at the low end of the dial, like 88.1 would be my preferred slot. And then it's just a much more interesting foundation to start to do community stuff or communicate in that way more directly with people, So, so sadness.
Yeah,
So,
sadness.
yeah. So are they sad?
They are sad. They're sad because you were orphaned as a young child, and you hearken back to those times. You walk us through things with your father, things with your mother, and what it was like to have to raise yourself.
Yeah. And so maybe this is terrible, but why do you think I go there?
Well, I mean, you were orphaned as a young child. I assume you're doing it because it has value to you to do this deep exploration and you want to share it with others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Only you would know.
Yeah, no, I don't even think it's that.
My husband was weeping too much to keep listening. I think he had to stop. He stopped listening because he was He couldn't take the crying.
Yeah, no, I mean that's one of my goals is to make grown men cry. And so tell him I need him to continue to listen and wait because that's like
Listen and wait. That could
yeah,
be your motto.
he's my core audience. Okay, so yeah, well, first of all, I don't think it was a conscious choice, so I don't know why I'm on the conscious reality show, but it was more the I've spent a lot of time prevaricating, is that a word? Kind of skirting around telling certain stories, a lot of stories actually, and then it just kind of hit this moment where I was like, F it. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm just not gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna worry about form. I'm not gonna worry if this is fiction or nonfiction. I'm not gonna worry about whether this is for publication or not publication. I'm done, right? I'm just gonna start to tell stories and just tell them and wherever and just see where it goes. And so it's not, and it just happens to be they go in these certain directions. And so that's part of it. The I guess in terms of the sad part, I mean, I would say that it doesn't feel sad to me, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't feel weepy, but that I don't like for me, like, and my brother can attest to this. My brother and I have grown very, very close. We were not always close, but we've grown intensely close
I'm
over the
aware of
last,
that. Yeah.
several years. But like we both experienced a kind of grief. I mean, grief isn't even the right word, just a searingness. It was like being barbecued, emotionally, at a pretty young age. And so deep and so intense of a set of feelings that it was really paralytic, if you can say that. And
Yeah.
so it was a serious, like I would call it a serious sadness. And so in light of
Yeah.
that, this is like eating a box of, See's candy,
Yeah.
for me.
It's
Yeah. So
more,
anyway,
maybe
yeah.
it's more, well, the word that I came with you probably won't like any better than
No,
sadness, which is maudlin. But like,
maudlin.
but going back, but I mean it, I'm trying to find
Yeah.
sentimental, I think is the
Mm,
better word. So something where you're going back to that, you're getting in touch with that the sweet side of that sadness
yeah.
is the word
And
I'm searching for and
yeah,
losing.
I get a sweet side to the sadness. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that part of it is, and I realized this, I actually kind of realized it just this morning, is that that's what stories do. It's a way to to transform something that is just untenable into
Yeah.
like a space that is tenable. So that's part of it. And then I do. This wasn't even conscious. I wasn't thinking of this at all. But as I've gotten a
Yeah.
lot of feedback from listeners, like people are really enjoying that feeling.
Yeah.
Like they're really enjoying it, which I find interesting. And I think it's because it it feels like rather than solitary grief, it feels like a collective grief. And to experience grief collectively, I think is I'd like to think is can be transformative. Or I think that's why why we go there, is because it's kind of a lifeline. You're not all alone, curled up in the fetal position. Like I
Yeah.
woke up this morning in the fetal position, but now I'm not because I'm sitting here with you.
Well, let me ask you some questions that may transition us into the part of this where we're seeing what you might need to work on or done.
Yeah.
But also you could talk about this podcast as well. Um, these are my new questions to be asking everyone. So this is a debut. So do I'm writing a book on how to know what you know. So I'm interested in that. Do you know what you know? Are you in touch with like what your truth is? And if so, how do you access it? And how do you know when it's something is really true for you?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Um, so like You're talking about like emotional truth, or just like
or
truth, like
spiritual truth. Yeah.
truth. Yeah.
Like where it's really, for instance, how did you know that it was yours to create this podcast, that this really is yours to do? How did you like dial into that?
Yeah.
I mean, you could just
Um,
talk about it from a standpoint of, or do you need help dialing into it? Because if you don't
no,
know,
no,
I'm here to help
no,
you. That's what I do.
no. I've had as little doubt about this as I've had about anything in my life.
Mm,
Right. So that's interesting, just to feel
wow.
no doubt. And part of it was, um, well, there are a couple things. Golly, there are a lot of things. One, which maybe is, I hope this isn't too tangential, but one of the objects of sort of contemplation or subject matters of this whole story that I'm telling is
Yeah.
actually John Broccoli, who's a friend of ours growing up, right? He grew up in the same neighborhood as us. And he was commissioned to do this artwork or piece of art for a chapel in part of a Catholic church in Carlsbad, California, and it was going to be this like 6 month gig for him, and it turned into 6 years. And this was like a young kid in his 20s. I think he figured out at some point that when he totaled up all the hours he worked on it, he got something like 4 cents an hour. I know that's not an exaggeration. That's literally how much he got, right? And so,
I've had some jobs like that.
yeah, and yet, by the way, when I look at what he did, and I think deeply about what he did, and as I learned about the process of how he did it, it gives me a kind of confidence and a faith, right? That like he probably has more doubt about what he did. I have more faith about it than he does at this point, right? But I think as a model of you don't know where something's going to go, you don't know
Hmm.
how it's going to shake out, and then just that trust. Well, you're along for the ride. You started, and you just got to go to the end of the road, right? So
Yeah.
there's that. I think one of the things in terms of like the things that's it's summoning from me, I would say. Um, Golly, uh I have, how do I know what I'm saying is true in there? I guess I just feel like after 60 years it's super deeply felt, right?
Yeah.
And it's not as if I don't think I'm giving any prescriptions in there particularly. I mean, I think the overall sense of it alludes to things, but I don't know even if I'm answering the
Yeah.
question really,
That's
but
okay. So, and there's this whole the adoration, and there's all this religious symbolism, and there you also are tracking sort of the Christian calendar as you go
yeah,
through it, right? Although you
yeah,
seem to be several weeks ahead of where I am in the Christian calendar, but we'll leave that
yeah,
for we don't
yeah.
need
It's
to discuss
fungible.
that.
The Christian
Um
calendars has some flex.
so that suggests to me that you believe in a power greater than yourself, but I don't know if it's true. Uh, so I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, that's
How would you describe that power?
sure. And so I think in the process of doing this, actually, and thinking about this stuff, it's been a revelation of sorts. I mean, and
Mm,
not like revelation, like oh, like whatever, light and bearded man, whatever, but more just in thinking deeply, or as deeply as I can, about certain subject matter, things start to reveal themselves, right? And so one of the things, like I wasn't schooled as a Christian or Jewish, by the way, and any of that, and
yeah,
I mean really grew up in kind of an agnostic space, and but in the process of writing or talking about this Catholic imagery, right?
yeah,
I thought, well, wait a minute, I should probably think about that stuff for a minute, and it turned into like a real long minute, like but with the really wonderful part, again, it's like I'm not reading the Bible, I'm just looking at these images and then thinking like, well, what does that summon in me, and if that, like, why is it that and not another thing? And as it starts to, and it's informed by, of course, all sorts of millions of things I've experienced in my life. So I'm bringing my own sort of surgical scalpels or toolkit to all of, like, Christianity. And it gets really exciting because I'm able to almost invent it or reinvent it for myself. Like, what does this really mean, without having anybody else tell me why is it the bowl of Saint Luke? Why the eagle of Saint John? Why a cross and not whatever else he could have been crucified on? Why this? Why that? And in thinking about it, I start to unfold my own version of whatever the Christian faith is. So in some ways, it's a little bit like repoing it from, I mean, everyone, anybody who possesses to really know what the divine is, like, good luck with that.
Yeah.
So, right. So this is my version, but
cool. I'll just chime in to say that, just because, I try to make this show more like you and I are having the conversation that we would have, and you know how we interrupt each other constantly.
Yeah, interrupt.
I'm reading the book.
That's a good one.
Good
Voice
one,
of God.
Rico Man of Christian faith. I'm reading the book. I'm reading the book Richard Rohr, by Richard Rohr, The Universal Christ. And it is, he is a Catholic priest. Oh, I tried to put it on the comments, but it didn't go. Maybe just because I had it in there. Universal Christ by Richard Rohr. Yeah. And he is a Catholic priest who has written multiple books, but this Universal Christ, and he is a political activist too. So he's doing constant spiritual. I think he has this whole compound in not in a bad way, in Arizona, and like a monastery, I guess you'd say. People come there and are of faith and also are in action. And it's a wonder. I think he's pretty into the current Catholic Pope, but what he writes about and talks about is that the Christ is not Jesus. The Christ is the Christ consciousness, and it has always existed from the beginning of time, and it has existed within every single religion and every single person and every spirituality, and it has nothing to do with religion or Catholicism. It is simply that Jesus the Christ was not his last name. He came to awaken the world to the fact that the Christ was already here in everyone, and that we had the power to change reality, to connect with a new reality and to change it. And so that is what I believe. And I get very inspired every time I read a chapter of his book. I need to like meditate on it for about 2 weeks because it's so deep. Anyway, so, but this conscious reality show. So do you believe that that everything you see is the only reality? Or do you think there are other realities?
Sure. Okay. So maybe that sort of leads kind of back into the tail end of your question about what I believe. So, I first of all, no, I don't believe that what I perceive, whatever. But then in terms of what I think that whatever it is, I mean, I think if you kind of look at it, not regressively, but whatever. Anyway, like, I read Cormac McCarthy's Passenger, by the way, last week, and which summoned all sorts of thoughts. But if you look at, like, if you just try and contemplate what the worldview of a bacterium is, right? And it has sensory organs, or not, maybe not organs, but sensory apparatus. It has, and maybe some apparatus of things where it's responding to the universe or to the world around it. It has, if not neural pathways, something like that, where there's a call and response thing going on. It makes decisions based on information it receives, or maybe you can call it a decision, but our ability to understand what that world is like for a bacterium, like it's beyond us. We can't conceive of it. We can't conceive of the worldview of the tree outside my door, or the network of trees, right? They're all bound together with their roots and mycelium and all sorts of other stuff. What they're receiving of the world and how they're responding to it, I can't can it. I can't understand it, right? Just because I don't have the apparatus, and I can't, even, a bird can see way different colors than me. It can hear different sounds than me. I don't know what its olfactory system is, but its cognition, what it can receive from the world. There are things it can receive that I just don't have the ability to do, right? So clearly, like, my understanding of the world is necessarily and absolutely circumscribed, as to such a severe extent, right? And so, just by
So wait,
definition,
dumb that
yeah.
down. You're using, that because a bacterium is so constricted in what it perceives, but it can perceive a lot, that you must be therefore also.
So, yes,
Because
as a
that
living,
there's as a living organism.
and I just know, and and even we know that dogs can hear things that we can't. We know certain butterflies can see colors that we can't, right?
And then the
Yeah.
bacterium can also perceive things we can't. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we kind of privilege ourselves, like somehow we're at the apex of some
Right.
evolutionary thing, and that we have sort
Yeah.
of heightened powers, we're Uberman or
Yeah.
whatever. And
Well, and we may have some things we perceive that other animals don't.
we do have things that we perceive that like the ant has no idea of what we
Like
know.
Donald Trump. Like, I really
Yeah.
envy the rest of it, because they might not be aware of this prevalent fiction.
Yeah, right. So I know they blissfully unaware. And it's actually, by the way, talk about not believing and denying in the reality of Donald Trump. That the line of ants in your yard really isn't denial, and they're actually doing quite well,
Yeah,
probably,
they're
if you
probably
treat them
doing
well.
fine. All right,
Yeah.
let's hold on to that thought and acknowledge our sponsor. And when we come back, let's dive into what's it going to take to write that book, Andrew Lewis.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
All right. Well, we're back with Andrew Lewis, podcaster extraordinaire, The Mountain and Adoration in a Multitude of Parts, available on Substack and Spotify. Now I'm going to talk to Andrew as a amazing person who already has achieved so much, but definitely there are a lot of us that we're sure that you would have written a book by now, and I think your wife is one of them, and you may be even one of them. Do you have a book in you that you want to write? And if so, what's stopping you from writing it? And what can I do to help you connect with that knowing?
Yeah. Okay. So, wow, I'm an analyst now.
What's going to take to write that damn book?
Yeah. So, well, yes, I think there is a book in me. And by the way, like, who knows? Maybe The Mountain is that book, and I thought it
Is
was
it that book?
Well, it could be, but
It
I
sort
do
of
believe
feels like it might be.
Yeah, I mean, and my whole adult life, I felt there's another book in me, right? Which I've sort of delayed writing about my whole life.
And let me just speak to the vast audience of people that are listening to this and say, you may well have a book in you that you are planning to write. So pay attention, because this conversation could help you do it. Why am I now writing a book after decades of knowing that I was here to write a book and not writing a book? Is because I went to see Mark Anthony Lord, a minister slash channeling friend of mine. I didn't even know he channeled. And he told me, the spirits are saying you need to write your book, and you just need to go out there and do it, and do not take no for an answer. Pay someone to help you with it if you need to, not ghostwrite it, but to coach you. And I did that. I have a coach. I have a book coach, and he has coached me into writing. In fact, he will be on the show next week, Dennis Merritt Jones. We'll talk about that more later. But that did work for me, paying some money to actually have deadlines and to really be coached on how to do this, worked. What do you know that would work for you? What's your suspicion of what it would take?
Actually, what you just said, you can flash me his phone number right now. No, no, I do. I mean, first of all, and maybe, and I hope this doesn't sound hubristic, or maybe hubristic, but that at this moment, I feel like the tap is on. Like I can just turn on the tap and the water comes out. It's not like I don't
Right.
really worry
Because
about sitting down and staring at a blank
content.
page.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, you produce content very quickly on all the text threads that I'm on with you.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one reason I probably haven't written my book.
You're spending too much time on the text thread.
Texting Sarah, yeah. So maybe that's wow. I'll have to think about that. No, but also, and if I have a deadline, like if someone, truthfully, well, there are two parts. One, if someone says, "Hey, I need this by then," I don't, in general, I don't miss deadlines. I just don't, so like in the grant writing development stuff, I've never missed, so whatever.
Wow.
So that's not a problem.
Yeah, me too. External deadline, great with.
Yeah, so I do like that. It's so, you know what? It's so funny. This is so simple. Like I can't believe I have to like come to the altar of the conscious reality show to learn that I need to pay someone to give me a deadline. I think also it's funny the things that hang you up. Yeah, go on, please.
Well, does it work for you? One of the things I do more and more that has made me considerably more effective and also habitual in a good way since in recent years is I will say to, even if I'm not paying someone to set a deadline, I will tell someone else I am going to do this by this time. And then maybe I'll text them. Maybe if you know anybody that you ever have on text, you could text them. And you say, I'm going to do it. And then the next day you say what steps you're going to take in order to make that happen. So you create a deadline.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I wonder who I could text.
Who you text?
Yeah. So
I know you don't have more than a few thousand friends. So.
No, I just need one.
I mean, you could probably text Ramblin' Jack Elliott and it would work. I understand.
Okay, well, no, he wouldn't. Actually, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, you would work better than Jack. I love Jack. Actually, Jack.
I'm more likely to get back to you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think well, first of all, I'm glad the book that I need to write, I'm glad I didn't write it when I was 20 because I didn't know enough. It wouldn't have been right. So it's actually good that it hasn't happened yet, actually. I think good to acknowledge that.
Sure.
I think part of my challenge is, there's heavy stuff in there and I don't want to hurt people. There's still people alive today who might be hurt. So part of like,
it's all right. It's all right. I promise not to be hurt. I know there's going to be so many chapters on me, Andrew. It's fine.
I will have a chapter on you. Maybe I will. Certainly about your mom. Your mom. But
maybe mom.
Yeah, no, but but one of the consequences of that is I've had to, and this might be interesting, is that it's forced me to think, well, if I was going to write it now, and if I knew that these various eyes were on it, is there a way that I could write this that would be truthful, like really truthful, and honor the truth? And I think that, the truth's the truth, Ruth. You have to honor the truth. So, and do it in a way that isn't hurtful, and not like in a kid glove kind of way, but like it requires
Ah,
going into a space of such severe empathy and compassion that even that you can go so deeply in there and present it in a way that maybe someone who has done something grievous can then not feel shame, not feel shame.
I would
Does that make
really
sense?
invite you. I would
Yeah.
really invite you to not worry about that part.
Huh.
And let's do a little something on it. All the thoughts, beliefs, opinions, conclusions, oaths, vows, fealties, communities, swearings, bindings, bondings you ever made in this lifetime or in any lifetime to not do things that you're shown to do because you are afraid they would hurt someone else, and everything that is times a gazillion. Are you willing to destroy and uncreate it? Say yes.
Ooh.
Say yes at home too.
All right, I'll say yes.
Yes. Yes.
The-
Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine shorts, boys, povets, and beyonds. That's the access consciousness clearing statement, which clears all levels of all that stuff that you just said, that I just said. All the oaths, vows, fealties, communities, swearings, bindings, bondings that you ever made. So if you where I come from, we would say God never gives a vision without a provision. If I have been shown to do something, then there is a way to do it. And you just said a moment ago that you have no problem coming up with content. So do you or do you not trust the creative spirit that is working through you to find a way to do this? Why do you have to figure it out in advance? You'll get to it when you write that chapter.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Right. No, because I think that's a true statement, is that the act of the writing is, I mean, you're in this generative space and you're finding solutions, right? So for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the
Um,
way I think of it is spirit is asking me to write this book, my spirit as me, right? The part of spirit that is just me, that is living out its perfect life as me, is asking me to write this book. So it knows how to do it. I don't have to worry about that.
yeah. Okay. All right. All right. I can for the moment accept that. Uh,
Well, and you
yeah.
just cleared it,
Yeah.
whether you know it or not. You can always take it back, all those thoughts, beliefs, opinions, and conclusions, but I would invite you not to. And a lot of it, you've seen this, I think, with your podcast. A lot of it is just like taking that first step,
Right.
moving forward on it, right?
Yeah. So I think one of the things. Ooh, what's this book going to be about? Is that
Yeah,
it?
and
Right.
genre too. Is it nonfiction, I take it, or is it a
Yeah.
novelized
Yeah. No.
version?
It's intergenerational memoir, which ultimately has to be fiction. I mean,
Mm,
not intentionally, but I mean, I can write this straight as nonfiction, and it's going to be. We know that it's going to be fiction.
yeah.
Um, but uh, yeah, because part of it is, if you look at, you know what, this is it.
Okay.
If okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Um, if you look at, I'll give you a reveal. Actually, it's not a big reveal because, but
We're gonna make
early on,
news here, people.
okay, get ready. On early on in the podcast, I think in that third episode, I give kind of a pretty I'll call it graphic, um, recounting of my dear mother, who I love dearly, departed mother, beating my brother savagely on the kitchen floor, right?
Yeah.
And so my brother, who I love dearly as well. And so the question is like, what would bring a mother do that to her own child, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's interesting.
that's just like we're just talking about the cusp. Like, I mean, there's other things that happen in our lives. There are people who've endured
Yeah.
far worse things than we did, but just a level of neglect and
What
abandonment that was
what
pretty severe.
what happened? Right. What comes before that to allow that to
Right.
happen
And
in
so
human beings?
that's really the question. And if I start to
Yeah.
trade, and why the way, why am I like, I'm a pretty severe um nut. I mean, like my cortisol will go from 0 to 9,000 in about 3
Hmm.
seconds. Right.
Yeah.
Like severe cortisol response, which is, and not to get all like goo-gooey and psycho this on it, but like, that's a trauma response. That's a learned trauma response.
Yeah.
And so part of it is like if for those, I'm sure there are people out there, like if you come from a trauma environment,
Yeah.
you learn very quickly to be scanning the environment like insanely fast. Like you're constantly scanning the environment for threats, and
Yeah.
anything in the corner of your eye that you perceive as a threat, boom, you're going right. And so
I know a little about that myself.
oh yeah, you do know a little about that. And so the so then here I am, like I can't even wake up in the morning without suddenly thinking a truck's about to run over me while I'm still in bed. And and then it's like, so wait, where did that come from? And if I start to follow that back, then it gets actually to the very curious story of this woman who was my mom.
Hmm.
And then it gets even like, what
And
happened
that's why it
here?
becomes fiction, because you're having to get into her
Her deal. Yeah,
making
for
up
sure.
her mind for her.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I should, in some ways, by talking about this, I might be cutting the legs out from under me, or maybe not. I don't know. But part of
No.
it, and maybe that's just to whet people's appetite. But I think part of the challenge, I'll lay out two more. And by the way, everything you've said so far has been helpful. But I tend to bigger things ever since I was in first grade. Not bigger, like if I set a project before me, like, oh, I got to change the oil in my car. Well, you know what? I shouldn't do that before I got to drop the engine first and then paint it. And then I got to put like hydraulic lifts on it also, because that'll make it really cool, like, and then soon, like that lowrider car is never going to get built. Right. So there's
Right.
right.
Well, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
so I
why
don't,
you take
yeah,
the
yeah.
first step. You don't worry about, you do A. You don't worry. You know what Z is and you know what A is, and you don't worry about B, C, D, E, F, G.
So just go to A.
Yeah. So
Okay.
what's A? What's a
Well,
first step that you're willing to take? You could always turn back if you want
yeah.
to. What's a
Well,
first step that you're willing to take?
Well, I think the first step would actually just be to do, I'll call it a meditation, but I mean, ultimately that's what it is. But just as part of my practice, just start kind of like with the podcast a little bit. Like just sit down and start writing as the spirit moves me, right? Whatever that scene is that presents to me that day, and just write into it, and just do it
That's
every
good.
day, and not
Well,
worry about what, yeah.
okay. So start. So is the first step meditation daily? Is that what you're
Well, you're
saying?
right. No,
Meditation and writing,
yeah,
sort of morning pages, as it's called,
yeah.
morning pages.
Yeah, I had never heard of that phrase, but yeah, no. And by the way, not to, and
Oh,
by the way,
the
I
yeah,
appreciate that. It's because already, like, look at like that's perfect, right? Like, I start off with, I'm just going to sit down and write what comes to me, and within like half a beat, I turn it into every day,
yeah.
like,
That's why I'm
right? Which,
pushing back. And people at home, what's your first step? And make it just like a real first step.
yeah. So
Well, first
really,
step
yeah. Go on.
and first habit are both interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and by the way, this is something like we're going to be ending in a few minutes here, but
Yeah.
then I'll just offer this up. Like my go-to probably would have been after we're done is to go look at my news feed and see the latest drop from, the dude on Pennsylvania Avenue. And really, I don't need to do that. I don't. I really don't. And
Yeah.
by the way, I'm giving up my power to him, like to inhabit my brain and my being. So I think it would probably, my time would probably be better spent is just to keep everything on silence and just go to wherever this moment leads me, right? I think, okay, so but that's helpful. I think the other thing is like, I've always thought, well, okay, I got to write this thing. I got to go get, an agent or blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, and all of that stuff. I don't know. I don't know nothing about that. I really don't. And it just seems like a huge, like, it makes me tired to think of how to do that. And so I guess I could hire someone like a book coach to help me with that and tell me what to do. Or I could just say, I'm not going to worry at all about it.
Well, why don't you just start with that? How many minutes of meditation and writing one day?
I'm going to do 5 minutes today. I can do 5
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Today.
that's absurdly short. I could do that. So, yeah, I'll do it. In fact, I'm
Okay.
gonna text you when those 5 minutes are done.
Yay! I love that.
Everyone,
All right.
everyone, if you're starting something, I'm gonna totally like hijack this. Anybody, if you're starting
Yes.
something, I encourage you like to put 5 minutes into it right now. When you're done, to text Sarah. Okay, and then literally just fill up
if
her.
you happen to have my mobile, which you
Yeah,
probably
just blow
do if
up
you're
your
watching this.
phone. Blow up her thread. Blow up her thread on conscious reality.
Totally do that. All right. Let's just say 5-minute rule. Text Sarah when you're done. There you go.
Everyone in the world, you
Honestly,
can do that.
That's fine. It's really fine. I do have a lot of people texting me when they're done, or often they text me that they didn't do it, but they'll do it tomorrow. So next week is Dennis Merritt Jones. He is the author of 5, 6 books. The current one that is on the shelves is When Fear Speaks, Listen. And I believe it's published by Divorce, which is the publication company that's publishing my books. So how cool is that? When Fear Speaks, Listen, the 7 Messengers of Fear. Dennis is predominantly an author. He will occasionally do a favor and be a book coach. He doesn't make his living as a book coach. He makes a living as an author. How cool is that? And he's exciting and fun and funny and impactful. And he's going to also let me experiment on him next week too. So, or he'll experiment on me. We'll find out. Anyway, thank you for that. And yes, Andrew?
Oh, I was going to say that man in the black shirt who's sitting next to Dennis looks like a nice guy. But anyway,
you're calling Dennis the dog Dennis. That's cute, and the dog is adorable. And also that it's not too late to join the Heal Thyself that I'm doing, a monthly drop-in, or $300 for the year. 3rd Tuesdays. So that's, I think, the 17th of February is the next meeting. And the first one was deep. And I don't even want anybody to join that right now because it's such a great class already. But you're probably wonderful if you join us. So, and let's say goodbye and subscribe to the Conscious Reality Show YouTube channel. Follow it and share it on platforms that are not owned by billionaires who are trying to loot the treasury.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. I'm speaking up in Auburn this Sunday, the Foothill Center for Spiritual Living. And then I'm going to the Shivananda Retreat Center in Grass Valley. So
oh, wow. Yeah.
Thanks to our guest, to host CSara Stevens Nichols, and to the New Thought Media Network. I'm Sunny Childs, producer of The Conscious Reality Show. Join us live next Wednesday at 9 a.m. or stream the show at your convenience. Subscribe to Conscious Reality Show YouTube channel so you never miss a show. If you'd like to learn more about us, check out www.sarastevensnichols.com.
I like
Whoa.
that music. I chose it. I mean, it was a limited number of free licensed musics to choose from, but I really liked it. So, hey, Sunny, I wanted to ask you, did you come up with anything that's a first step for you?
Well, that
Or
was
were you
kind
too
of an
busy
interesting
producing?
That
Yeah.
was an interesting conversation, Sarah, given what we talked about recently.
I know. I was thinking of that.
I guess
Sunny,
it's
yeah.
snowing. Okay. My first step
Wow.
is, I still have that teacher reaction when I see the snow. Which
School
is,
day, the snow day.
well, that
Yeah.
is both a blessing, like, oh my God, this is so great, and oh no, how am I going to get the lesson finished? But yeah, I think that that idea, I really do like that idea of first thing in the morning before I do anything else. But I gave that originally to my physical therapy, and that's still there. So now there's two things I need to do in the morning before I do anything else. However,
I will say the number of things I do in the morning before I do anything else is epic now at this point, because that's the only time I really get those things done.
I know, that's why you get up at like 5:30, and then you can't do anything till like 11. I mean, you can't do any like other things until 11.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things. One, and I've already begun to do this, which is not try and scramble to do. I'm a retired teacher, and not try and scramble to do sub work to help my friends, just to let that be so that I can begin to do some of the other things that I really want to do.
If you don't mind me asking, what are the other things, or some of them, or these
Yeah.
things?
Well, one of them is to have a regular time to spend with the children of my children, so to speak. My students have babies, and I like to be around them. And the other thing is, yes, I have a couple of book ideas. One for sure fiction. I've often written nonfiction, both academic or about teaching, but the other being, I also grew up in quite a traumatic household. So, but the fiction is what's been calling me. And I know kind of where it starts, and it's kind of requires a lot of moving parts and pieces and research, and I'm kind of excited about it. I think about it a lot. So that might be part of it. Yeah. So I need to think about what my priorities are. And I wrote some of them down the other day after spending time with my incredibly delightful friends. And it involves clearing some things out, literally and figuratively. So I have a basement full of my past, and I really, it kind of goes like this. I can't tie until I clear out the basement. And I want to always be open to death. I know that sounds so odd saying that out loud.
Yeah.
Wait, as a way to get out of clearing the basement?
No.
No. Clear out the basement so
Opposite.
she can die. So she can die.
Do you know that the do they call it the Swedish have
Death
this
cleaning,
thing they
yes,
call
Swedish
death cleaning. Yeah, that they start doing when they retire.
I need to
Yeah.
start. I
They
needed to
don't
have
leave it
started.
for the kids.
As you know, you and I both, Sarah, have had it left for the kids, so to speak. We have done the cleaning out of our parents. And it really feels important to me. I don't think that comes before doing some writing, but it is when you ask Andrew, what are the things that I feel like I want to do, and I do spend some time doing them. I just recovered from a total knee replacement, and so I had limits, but it meant I also had to cut off all the things I had been doing. So it's a good time before I fill all of my time back up to begin to prioritize. And one of them is writing. I hear that.
Well, one of the biggest things is people people will do the thing where they say, I have to get this huge project done before I start on anything. And Andrew's thing of like 5 minutes is really what makes a difference. You can do 5 minutes of clearing and five
Oh,
minutes. It's
absolutely.
hard. It's hard to change gears, and some of us have more trouble changing gears than others.
Yes.
But clearing is, as you know, but just reminding everyone who might be listening that a spiritual thing as well, right?
Yeah.
Nature abhors a vacuum, and so every time I actually get rid of stuff, it welcomes my creative source to come.
Oh no,
through.
this is never, and I don't think of it as something that I do only, but you're right. Andrew, I really responded to your idea of you biggering things. Yes, it goes very, very quickly for me. I need to put a railing on my stairs. Before I do that, I maybe need to get those stairs reset. If I'm going to do that, what are the other things I need to do in my house? It's so quick. It
Yeah,
is so quick.
if I could offer a counter sort of ideation to that, by the way, and this just occurred to me like now within the last really since November, but really since January 20th, was like now I'm like, by the way, I have the same thing. I call it the vault. It's like 4 generations of family stuff. And a lot of it is like mnemonics of stuff that I want to like, probably not dissimilar to you, that it's writing material, but it's also like inherited memory. It's all this stuff, right? And so, as well as like just whatever clutter is in our lives, right? And you know, your bills. I mean, look at all
This
the
is
stuff in
literal
Sarah's
and figurative stuff.
literal and figurative, but I'll even point
Yeah.
to the literal, like on your little counter there, the stuff. I mean, if
Yeah.
you could see my whole office, it would look very much like
Right.
yours, Sarah, right?
Yeah.
But the point being, what occurred to me is we're in an evac moment, like an evacuation moment, and this is like coming from a family, like we evacuated in 1944, and we actually started to evacuate in 1941. Like it's like that kind of thing. Like the stormtroopers are at the door, we got to pack up and go, right? And so, but not just to give you this image, but I realized like, and I'm not saying like we're getting ready to leave the country, you know, like that may happen, but that's not so much it. It's more like this is the time now. We have to be nimble. The deck has to be clear. The papers have to be put away. The electric bill has to be paid. The filing cabinet needs to be organized and tucked away with a lock on it. You know, whatever it is, and that the time of just delaying and putting off and bickering is over. It's like, no, the office floor has to be cleared by this afternoon. You know, I need to, and I don't know what I'll do. I'll stick it in cabinets, but I have to have a clear space, because there's going to be we're facing such a sandstorm of distraction and stuff calling our attention and our life energy, that I need to be ready, not so much to respond to it, but to do what I need to do. Does that make sense? And Sarah might have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think
So
that that idea of being nimble is part of it, and the ability to focus in on what's important. Sarah got me one of those. I think that you got me that, Sarah. And
what is it, Jill?
Home and office fireproof bag. It has.
You can't leave it. It's not. You don't want to put
grab and go. You grab this and you leave.
And I have that. I have all the essential not all, but most of them in there. And
the ones you have to have on paper.
With the fires in Los Angeles, and having had a dear friend lose everything, it made me realize anything that I wouldn't put in my go bag or in that, I don't need.
Right.
And that makes it tons easier to clear the decks. Like it really, and I also
you could just wait for climate change to clear it.
Yeah. And
it will do. It will do.
And it'll do it very quickly.
Yeah. I'm afraid that
dear
Emma would have to deal before then, but maybe not. But the other thing you said, I also, there is no reason, and it might seem like it's counterintuitive, that let's say I go down to the basement, and a lot of it isn't my family stuff. I did a pretty good job of not bringing most of that back with me. I do have a chunk that I've got, but anything that I'm about to let go of, I can certainly sit down and write a quick vignette on. And no doubt that what will happen is my writing takes me somewhere else. So I can
Mhm.
imagine it actually being
Use it as a
part of the
spark. Yeah,
same part of the
Yeah.
I
process,
like
really.
it. Yeah,
And
I like it.
with that, I'd love to clear out of here. And
Okay,
so
I'm
I've
good
got
with
to
that.
go. If you guys want to stay online, we can do that, or I can end the stream. What would you like?
Yeah, let's end the stream, and then Andy, any closing thoughts about how the show went for you as before we end the stream?
It was super fun. I
Okay,
mean,
good.
yeah, it was great and useful. And by the way, I have a story for you. I don't need to
All
tell
right,
it to
well,
you now. I won't
okay,
tell it
well,
to you now.
end the stream, Sunny, and then Andy and I can still talk, and you can leave.